To best simulate a trial, you will be provided with instructions as if you were a juror on an actual case. After you have received the pre-trial jury instructions and you have heard the evidence, you will be provided with post-trial jury instructions and then be asked to render a verdict. Pre-trial jury instructions. Keep an open mind throughout the trial. Do not make up your mind about the verdict or any issue until after all the evidence and arguments from both prosecuting and defense attorneys have been delivered. Do not let bias, sympathy, prejudice, or public opinion influence your assessment of the evidence or your verdict. You must reach your verdict without any consideration of punishment. The defendant has pleaded not guilty to the charges. Do not be biased against the defendant just because he has been arrested, charged with a crime, or brought to trial. A defendant in a criminal case is presumed to be innocent. This presumption requires that the prosecution prove a defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you with an abiding conviction that the charge is true. You must impartially compare and consider all the evidence that was received throughout the entire trial. Unless the evidence proves the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, he is entitled to an acquittal, and you must find him not guilty. You must decide what the facts are in this case. Evidence is the sworn testimony of witnesses. Nothing that the attorneys say is evidence. Their questions are not evidence. Only the witnesses' answers are evidence. Do not assume something is true just because one of the attorneys asked a question that suggests it is true. You alone must judge the credibility or believability of the witnesses. In deciding whether testimony is true and accurate, use your common sense and experience. You must judge the testimony of each witness by the same standards, setting aside any bias or prejudice you may have. You may believe all, part, or none of any witness's testimony. It is up to you how much of the witness's testimony you believe. In evaluating a witness's testimony, you may consider anything that reasonably tends to prove or disprove the truth or accuracy of that testimony. Do not automatically reject testimony just because of inconsistencies or conflicts. You will be presented with a trial summary of an actual case of child sexual abuse that occurred in California. A summary of the trial will be followed with a video reenactment of the alleged victim being questioned in court. Trial summary. This video reenactment is from a trial where the defendant is accused of sexual abuse. The defendant is the boyfriend of the alleged victim's mother. He does not permanently live in their apartment, but he sometimes sleeps there for a few days in a row. The witness testified that the first abuse event occurred at night in her bedroom. The second alleged abuse event occurred the next day when the witness was in the bathroom. After the alleged abuse, the witness continued contact with the defendant. The first time the police investigated the alleged abuse, the witness denied that any abuse took place. The defendant also took the stand and testified that the allegations made against him are false and that he would never engage in that type of behavior with the witness. The defendant further testified that the witness has been known to make up stories in the past and that she did not like him spending the night with her mother. He testified that he had no previous accusations against him. The police officer and investigating officer also testified about their involvement. There were no additional witnesses or evidence presented during the trial. You will only hear the testimony of the alleged victim. The witness was 10 years old when the alleged abuse took place and was 12 years old at the time of the trial.